Hi everyone, welcome to our event. This event is brought to you by Data Talks Club, which is a community of people who love data. We have weekly events and today is one of such events. And if you want to find out more about the events we have, there is a link in the description. Go there, click on this link and you'll see all the events we have in our pipeline. Then do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we have an amazing Slack community where you can hang out with other data enthusiasts. And what I also wanted to show you, I think I'm sharing, let me stop sharing it. If you go to our YouTube video, you will see that there is a link in the description. So in this tutorial today, we will see how to use Segment for identity resolution, and then to sign up for Segment, this is the link you use. It's also pinned in the live chat. And with that, I am stopping sharing my screen. And Nathan, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Alexei. Hi, everyone. I am Nathan from the Data Science and Analytics team at Total Segment. I've been at the company for more than 3 years now, working with my go-to-market stakeholders across marketing, sales, and customer success to serve our customers. Now, good identity resolution is extremely central to the work that we do and unlocks so many use cases for us. This is why I'm excited to be here today to share with you some identity resolution essentials from the perspective of a data scientist. Specifically, what identity resolution is and some key considerations around it, use cases that good identity resolution can enable, my team's experience going it alone and coming up with our own build, and then finally, how Unifi with Segment could be a good solution for data teams when it comes to identity resolution. Now, to start things off, what is identity resolution? ID resolution is the practice of creating a single customer profile for every customer by unifying different data sets from a variety of sources. And these sources include interactions across web, mobile, CRM, marketing and support tools, SMS records, and more. Put differently, the identity graph merges the complete history of each customer into a single profile, no matter where they interact with your business. Now, there are two main approaches when it comes to identity resolution, the first being deterministic and the second being probabilistic. And these two approaches essentially presents a trade-off between precision, which is the level of accuracy in your profile merges, and reach, which is the proportion of actual customer touches that were associated correctly. Now, let's take a look at what each of these actually mean. Deterministic identity resolution uses a set of rules to associate various records to a single customer. These rules are based off facts, and data points used are typically first-party personally identifiable information, or PII, that is either authenticated by a user or is a unique system-generated ID. Examples of these include phone numbers, email addresses, and user IDs. Essentially, this functions like a set of join statements, and this means that the data sets and relationships between identifiers will need to be fairly clean and well-defined. The advantage here is that we will be very precise with our identity associations, and this is what we mean by precision, because deterministic approaches makes no assumptions or no inferences to match records, and this yields the highest degree of confidence in making a match. The disadvantage, however, will be potentially misassociations when there actually should be a true match. And this is because the efficacy of the deterministic approach is really dependent on whether the data is clean or if PII is available. And this could rule out large amounts of data potentially. Now, moving on to probabilistic identity resolution. This refers to the use of predictive algorithms to estimate the probability that any two records belong to the same individual. This is sometimes referred to as fuzzy matching and is used to associate potentially related records based on an acceptable or accepted level of statistical confidence. Information used are typically IP address, operating system, location, Wi-Fi network, and behavioral data. For example, if an anonymous customer is browsing a specific product on two separate devices that are connected to the same network, a probabilistic algorithm may tie that engagement data to a single user profile. Now, in terms of pros and cons, probabilistic approaches have the potential to find matches at a greater scale and using messier data than a deterministic approach. However, it sacrifices a degree of accuracy to achieve that reach. That being said, the impact of false associations could be non-trivial. Bad personalized emails sent to customers could result in negative customer experience and rapidly erode trust. When this mistake is compounded at scale, you could very quickly end up with a lot of upset customers. Now, what are some key considerations we should look out for in an identity resolution system? There are three things to consider generally, and the first being anonymous to known identification, second, cross-device identification, and third, cross-app identification. And this is how we do it at Segment, and I'll take you through some examples on what these mean. So if you leverage a product like Segment CDP, we can use this example of a sneaker company, which has an e-commerce app called SecKicks, and follow a customer through her journey from an anonymous user to a registered buyer. Now, here's a sequence of events. Jane downloads an app on her iPhone, but doesn't yet register for an account. And here are the events that you see: app opened, on the app SecKicks, there's an anonymous ID that registers, and then immediately it also kind of catches the device ID. Jane then clicks on shoe A, but she actually doesn't add it to a cart. And you'll note at this juncture, again, because she hasn't quite registered for an account, all these events will be sent through with an anonymous ID and the iOS device ID. What Jane subsequently does is she checks out, and upon checkout, she creates a new user profile with the email, and she purchases shoe B that was actually on discount. Now, at the point of this account creation, you will see that Jane is now assigned a user ID of ABC123DEF, and the events of the purchase are sent through with an email. So what did we just see here? The original anonymous ID events are now actually be able to be linked with logged in activity. And this way, the app's marketing team can actually begin to map out Jane's customer journey and understand her preferences. So suppose shoe A eventually goes on sale. So Jane didn't buy it the first time around, but SecKicks can now potentially retarget Jane with a highly personalized email, letting her know that shoe A is now on sale, given that she expressed interest previously. Next, cross-device identification. Users can have multiple touch points with an app ecosystem through more than one device. For example, users might interact with an e-commerce app through both a native app, a web browser, and an email web browser. That's what I meant. So continuing with the example of Jane Doe, she now views the same mobile app of SecKicks, but actually this time on her Android phone. And as you can see, because this is a new session, there is a new set of anonymous ID ending in 456 and a new device ID. That's basically an Android device ID. Jane subsequently logs on to the Android phone with the same email of janedoe@gmail. This is kind of captured here. And because of this common email and user ID, we're now able to successfully associate an Android ID with her user profile's identities. And this is all done through Segment. Last but not least, cross-app identification. So suppose SecKicks also has a running app called SecRuns. And it's kind of common for them to have kind of multiple types of business and dedicated apps. Jane now downloads the Android app, SecRuns, and views a workout. And this time, there is, again, a new anonymous ID generated, this time ending in 789. But because of the existing Android ID in her identity profile, we're able to automatically include this new anonymous ID from this app and be aware of her activities on this second app of SecRuns. Now, by combining the events through Jane's entire customer journey from anonymous to known user, cross-device, cross-app identification, SecKicks and SecRuns can now work together to understand how to give Jane the best customer experience possible while increasing LTV, regardless of where she engaged with the company. For example, if Jane looked at shoe C, the third shoe, on her iPhone and completed a checkout for shoe C later on her Android, which is a different device, SecKicks will actually now know to exclude her from a cart abandonment email for shoe C. Now, this wouldn't have been possible if SecKicks had only looked at her activity on the phone. Moving on, why build identity resolution systems and what use cases can these enable? Now, identity resolution is the foundation to great customer engagement. And with best-in-class identity resolution, you will be able to assemble golden profiles, which are full and trustworthy 360 customer profiles. With these golden profiles and the rich dimensionality that they bring, marketers can then build advanced audiences and really unlock the ability to customize every interaction for millions of customers. Another use case would be attribution and customer journeys. In the example we went through earlier, we were able to learn how a user interacts with your brand through different channels and different departments, and use that to inspire engagement and loyalty. And finally, something I'm particularly interested in, machine learning. You can train ML models using these golden profiles to reduce customer acquisition costs, increase lifetime value, and better target your customers' outreach, or rather your company's outreach. Now, here's a specific example where we use identity resolution as Segment to boost our B2B sales funnel. At Segment, we put out many forms of high quality content. So blogs, technical documentation, ebooks, webinars. And usually these are anonymous interactions before leads identify themselves by reaching out to us for a demo request or downloading a piece of gated content. If we do not include anonymous activities and only started tracking the customer journey from the point at which they become known to us, we would be losing key information about their engagement with our non-gated content, such as our website, blog, and technical documentation. Leveraging identity resolution, we were able to generate customer profiles based on the activities they engaged in, starting from when they were anonymous traffic to known leads. These engagement metrics were then used as key features for our models. And some examples include, 1, the number of page views on various parts of Segment website. So it can be on our pricing page or our technical documentation. 2, the number of days these leads visited our website. And 3, the number of individuals from each company that had ever interacted with us. So we can kind of get a sense of kind of aggregate interest. It turns out that these engagement metrics are some of the most predictive features we have in our models. And intuitively, it makes a lot of sense. Leads who have spent a lot more time interacting with our product materials before requesting for a demo will have a much better understanding of Segment's value proposition compared to another lead who saw a paid display ad at an external site and then directly requested for a demo. The first lead with anonymous engagement tends to be more likely to become a potential customer. And the challenge here is really making sure that we're accurately capturing and associating these anonymous interactions with leads once they become known to us. Now, the exciting thing about these engagement-based lead scoring models is that we were able to empower our sales representatives to engage with the right leads at the right time. Yeah. So here are some great business outcomes that we were able to help achieve. First, inbound lead conversion improvement. On a busy day, an inbound sales rep could receive up to 10 requests, if not more. So how should we prioritize their efforts? We trained a ML model to compute the propensity of inbound leads to convert into a customer. And using this information, sales reps were able to focus their efforts on higher graded leads and deprioritize leads that were poorly graded. This has actually led to dramatic improvements in conversion outcomes, where our top graded leads are 4 times as likely to convert as the average lead. Second, we also applied a version of this engagement-based lead score to our outbound motion. And in this instance, we're targeting warm leads who have been interacting with our content and may be ready to engage a sales rep, but have not explicitly responded to a call to action. And on top of surfacing these leads for sales outreach, we were able to provide our sales reps with the touches that these leads have made so that these sales reps can actually craft customized pitches to better engage these potential customers. Now, coming back to our third example, real-time paid marketing optimization. Previously, we would have needed to wait 3 to 4 weeks before getting a proper read on how well our paid advertising leads actually converted into opportunities, because that's just how long it took for a lead to move into a qualified opportunity. But because the lead scoring model gives us a close to real-time understanding of the lead quality that our actual spend is bringing in, we're able to send this information back into our app platforms through conversion APIs as offline data, with just a delay of a few hours. And this is done through a cool feature, a reverse ETL feature that our segment product now has, enabling us to basically only really shorten a 3 to 4 week process to hours. And this really empowers our marketing team to dynamically respond to changes in the paid marketing kind of auction market. These great outcomes are all made possible through robust identity resolution, and the possibilities unlocked are simply tremendous. With all that being said, and as much as we enjoyed leveraging good identity resolution to unlock strong business outcomes, I'll share that not all was nice and dandy as we started on this journey and this process. There was actually a lot of heavy lifting that we had to do on the identity resolution front, especially when we first started with our DIY build. And here are some of my experiences and learnings. So first, the initial build took us a fair amount of time. It was almost 400 lines of SQL logic and weeks of work just to clean the data, union disparate sources, deduplicate, and then finally merge the profiles. So it's a fairly involved process. And that was just what's required for kind of synthesizing 3 types of identifiers, which is like, well, in our case, we did anonymous ID, user ID, and email. Now, subsequently, the maintenance requirements were onerous. And evidently, I think a lot of you build your own thing. So there's a lot of excitement initially as we shipped our identity resolution solution and then started building data products up. So a lot of energy there. However, it was one of these things that it turns out you cross the finish line for a sprint only to realize that you're kind of at the beginning of a marathon, which is this long process of maintenance and iteration. For instance, once our team kind of brought on new engagement solutions with completely different data structures, this just rendered our existing logic kind of out to date. And we had to do additional work to really incorporate that new data source. And one third thing that we found out is that all that painstaking work that we did to clean up the profile ended up being somewhat stuck in the data warehouse. So this source of truth, painstakingly assembled, we now had to find and figure out this way to actually activate this golden profile and having it available to all end users in the company across their tool of choice. And this is before we had the reverse ETL solution. So fourth, there was a lack of real-time resolution for us. And this is because, again, we assembled it in our data warehouse and we had kind of cron jobs running. And there's a limit as to how many times you can run that job each day. So we actually ran it only a couple times a day to minimize compute costs. Now, while this slight latency in ID resolution may not pose as big a challenge for a B2B SaaS company as ours, for B2C businesses in particular, real-time customer identity resolution will probably be paramount to power meaningful customer engagement. Fifth, there was a relative lack of observability. And for those of you who are more familiar with identity resolution, you will note that it's not immediately obvious when profile merges are wrong. Right? It's almost this thing where you have to check through actual examples to then make sure your identifier associations and like how you kind of structure your logic is appropriate for your business and how the data is collected. So observability is actually key. And the pain point that I personally faced was that there was a rather cumbersome verification loop, meaning marketers who are end users of attribution products would frequently point out associations that they think is suspect. Now, while I have the identity graph and customer journey laid out in detail in my data warehouse, the information is unfortunately just not readily accessible to stakeholders like marketers who prefer to have a clean UI and kind of have an ease of interaction with that data. Now, therefore, typically I have to be present in the verification loop and to help assess and to check the ID graph for veracity. And I would say the somewhat frustrating thing sometimes is that it often turns out that these identifications or these associations are indeed correct, but it's just not immediately obvious when you're kind of looking at it from the outside, from the perspective of a marketer. However, the same amount of effort will still have to be put in by me to help stakeholders see for themselves why this association was made. So this lack of observability was ultimately hindering the building of trust in the ID resolution system that we stood up. Then last but not least here, there's a lack of a consistent canonical identifier. We did have a pseudo canonical ID where it was basically the first known ID of the email, which meant it could kind of take the form of an anonymous ID, email or user ID, just kind of joined new identity profiles onto this thing we call the master ID. And while we managed to make it work, it was not the most elegant because the fact that there are 3 different types and formats of IDs as the canonical ID is not something that you would consider as like best data practice. And it was kind of confusing for end users of the table who did not write the logic themselves. So now, as promised, that was kind of our DIY build. And we had set it up years ago before Unifi for Segment was available. And now that it's live and that we've moved on to it, what's the difference? So let me run through some of that with you now. Now, this is a comparison between a DIY build at the top, which is similar to what we did, versus a solution that's powered by Segment Unifi. And in the DIY build, you'll see that we had to put in weeks of work and hundreds of lines of code just to clean the data, union different sources, deduplicate, and then merge profiles. And subsequently, as articulated earlier, there was still kind of the challenge of getting these golden profiles into the various marketing tools where they can actually be used for outreach. And each of these required interaction and kind of effort from our team to enable. It's not the most onerous, but it's like one of these things where it just kind of pops up randomly as the business moves on to new tools and new processes. You'll see that Segment Unifi dramatically simplifies the identity resolution and process. And this requires it reduces the effort required from the data team to 1, stand up, and 2, maintain the robust identity resolution. Some key aspects, it actually captures events in real time. and it carries out identity resolution in a deterministic manner based on the identity graph rules that you can configure according to your business needs. And once the golden profile is assembled and available in Segment Unifi, you can actually use that to build real-time audiences and send that single source of truth off to multiple destinations easily and maintain consistency across your tools. Moreover, Segment can offload the heavy lifting by providing a canonical identifier, right? And that can serve as the point of consistency that all other identifiers are then merged with. Essentially, a distinct segment ID is generated with each new profile, and it serves as that canonical ID as the profile is then built out over time. Now, I'm going to run you through some specific Segment Unifi features that I found particularly useful and could benefit you as well. And this is actually an actual screen grab from one of our demo environments. So no PII is being revealed here. Now, first, with Profile Explorer, anyone at the company can explore unified profiles from a single location in Segment to actually understand who's using your product. And specifically, you can view all user data, including their event history, traits, and identifiers. So this is an example of how all your users would kind of look in the users in the Profile Explorer. And if we drill in to one single user, say Gerald Riley, this is the Identities tab within the Profile Explorer. And here you can clearly see the user ID, anonymous ID, and email associated with this person. And if there are more IDs, such as the device or Google Client ID associated with this person, they will also show up here as well. So this is kind of how you see what are all the identifiers associated with Gerald. Now, this is a very helpful view for QA purposes, and my marketing counterparts can now access this identities tab themselves and verify that the identity resolution makes sense and can be trusted. And that's actually more. So on the same Explorer, there are these various tabs of traits and events, where you can see characteristics that are associated with the customer, as well as events logged by them. So you can kind of see Gerald had all these different traits associated with him, like 4 order counts, and we can compute a LTV off that. What's the kind of loyalty to segment, so on and so forth, and kind of blow by blow, like events tracked, like based on his interactions. So all in, the Profile Explorers really helps you to provide a ease of access to user profiles, ensure data quality, and that way you can be sure that the data you receive is the data that you expect. And then last but not least, provide marketing, sales, and support the context. And this is where they can look up a user profile to really understand where they are on their journey with your business or product. Segment Unifi also comes with this really cool portability and activation features that solves a lot of the pain points that I had experienced in the DIY build. So first, profile sync, which is this feature we have, actually sends the identity resolved profiles to the data warehouse. So now that resolution actually sits in Segment, and we're still able to port that into the data warehouse. So for teams like mine, whose work centers heavily around the data warehouse, it's a very easy plug and play with minimum impact to our setup. And this is almost like we had built one in a data warehouse anyway. Now we're just kind of taking that from Segment and putting it in the warehouse and mirroring that. Second, we can also enrich the profile using data from systems of records, such as a CRM or customer support tool, and subsequently activate that data by using reverse ETL to send it downstream to any tool that the business requires. So this is kind of more featuring data that is a snapshot in time, such as in your CRM, but there could still be traits that you want to identify with this person. And with this kind of solution here, you can definitely merge those in your data warehouse and still be able to then kind of send that off to any destination of your choice using the reverse ETL tool that we have. And finally, they're the developers here. The profile API, with that, the world is really your oyster. The API allows you to programmatically access the entire user object. And this includes the external IDs, traits, and events that I showed you earlier that really makes up the customer's journey with the product. And some examples of how we've seen people use the profile API is like, one, they built a in-app recommendation engine to show users or accounts the last 5 products they viewed but did not purchase. Or 2, you could empower your sales and support associates with the complete customer context by embedding a user profile in third-party tools such as Zendesk. A third way that we saw is kind of powering personalized marketing campaigns by enriching dynamic and custom properties with profile traits in your marketing tools like Braze. Now, in our DIY solution, it would have taken additional effort to send these information to downstream tools. But as mentioned, these portability and activation features really reduces that friction, opens up possibilities, and in turn incentivizes the cultivation of this single source of truth, golden customer profile in Segment. And remember, I mentioned that we sent basically offline information back into our app platforms. We use our reverse ETL solution to power that. And that's what helped us shorten the entire loop from 3 to 4 weeks into a matter of hours. So all in all, Segment Unifi helps data teams get the foundation right, and thus enabling a focus on unlocking business value and bringing it all together. We first help you, or rather, Segment actually enables you to collect, unify, and then activate data all in one platform. So as you can see, we collect data from an ecosystem of data sources on the left. We then consolidate that into a unified profile that gives you a single view of your customer. And that's kind of what we walk through. And then finally, to activate that data for precise and highly targeted customer interactions. Now, we had started years ago with a DIY build, and really with the benefit of Unifi with Segment, really reduces the work required to build and maintain ID resolution. And although I am accustomed to putting in the effort to clean and prepare data, which is all something that data scientists do, is really still something that I would rather do less of. And going forward, this really allows my team to focus a greater share of our efforts on refining our predictions and making our models more performant. So Unifi is a solution that has helped us internally, and it could be something worth considering for your data teams as well. So we'll highly encourage developers and data scientists out there to try it out, start a workspace with us. There's a link that Alexei mentioned that's at the bottom of this video. So use that, create a workspace, and give the product a spin. Now, I've spoken a whole bunch. Happy to take any questions or revisit any slides or topics that we covered above.
Yeah, I have registered with Segment, and what I see immediately is there's a lot of things, and it seems like I need to have a website in order to start experimenting with this. And I'm wondering if there is any sort of a small project I can do just to learn the tool, just to learn about identity resolution without having to have a website first in order to feed it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Alexei. So we actually also have this course we call Segment University. I should have labeled that. So if you like you mentioned, right? I think the power, it's really useful to experience firsthand the power of the product if you actually have a website of your own and you can really start sending events to it. So that's really, really cool. You kind of see it in real time. But in the absence of that, we do have kind of this like course that we put together that kind of uses like examples so that you can really kind of follow through. And the other thing is like, if you're not someone who's like, wants to sit down and like click through courses, we actually have a lot of docs that are very, very well written. So one thing I can say with confidence is like we have a great documentation team, even in the docs page where kind of they list out the process of how to set it up. You can really just kind of walk through and really see for yourself. And then they use like real examples like the one I featured just now to really help you understand, okay, if this is a person with these types of interactions, what is the kind of information you'll actually be able to log and see in the segment app itself.
Can you share with us the link, or maybe you can just, since you're sharing a screen, maybe you can show us how to find this segment university, because it looks really interesting, and I think this is when I learn something, I really want to do things hands-on. And sometimes, even if I do have a production website, I might prefer to first play with a toy example, just to get the feeling of the tool before starting to integrate it with the website. So it's university.segment.com.
Yeah, and I've included it in the chat. I'm happy to also send it across to you so that we can.
It should be already in the description, and I am adding now to the live chat. So what do we have here? So what is segment 101?
Click in. There's a whole bunch of like introduction to segment, implementation planning, how you should actually. So one key thing that we also want to is probably a good chance to reinforce. Good data governance is still paramount, right? Segment is a tool that helps you do that really, really well, but the business also should have that point of view, or rather the discipline to make sure that data is governed well. Now we have a lot of good material here, so you don't have to start from scratch, right? They're literally templates. They can tell you if you're a direct-to-consumer company, how you should kind of set it up. If you're a B2B SaaS customer, how you should probably kind of structure your data. So there are a lot of good resources here for you to kind of really go in and go as far as you want, right? And you can kind of see, like, we even have a section on like debugging and troubleshooting. And if you are particularly interested in identity resolution, then this like kind of engaged bit slash personas will probably be the one to really double click into. I think this is the 101. There's like still also like 201. Yeah, so this is probably if you kind of want to go deeper. And yeah, we even go as far as to show you how to come up with your own functions, right? So we actually already have a very robust set of kind of source and destination integrations. But say there's a very new cool product that's like on the market that we just haven't gotten around to having a dedicated integration, you could write your own function to kind of get data there. So as a developer, you also don't necessarily feel like you're in a walled garden of sorts, right? Like think about it as you have access to this whole library of sources and destinations right off the bat. But if there's like kind of that one more thing that you need to bring in, you can still do that easily and bring that automatically into, not automatically, you need to do the work, but bring that easily into segment.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that is definitely a very useful thing. I did put the link to the description. It's in the description of the video. I'm also wondering, so as a data scientist, this is all cool and I understand the benefits of having a unified customer profile. But as a data scientist, I really want to do, like all I want to do is train a useful model and then start impacting the business. So how can I do that? So now I have a unified profile in Segment. So what's next for me? How do I start actually using it? How do I get this data to my scikit-learn model? How do I get this pandas data frame?
Got it. Yeah. So, well, the powerful thing about this is that, remember, there's the profile sync data. So feature that we have stood up. So all this clean profile that you've kind of sampled in Segment is now immediately portable, and you can set up the update cadence like to be daily or even more. And it automatically, just on a recurring basis, takes that information and ports it into your data warehouse. Okay. So once it's in your data warehouse, then you just kind of hook it up to however you've kind of set up your ML ops environment. So we haven't we're not in that space, right? But we come with solutions that makes it easy for you to really run your workflow. And I believe a lot of data teams are very data warehouse centric these days. So the data is there, it updates regularly. And using that, we build our features off that, right? So a lot of features I mentioned in terms of anonymous users interacting interacting with our web pages before that, or even like known users, like what's their webinar accounts, like content, types of contents they engage with. You can even assign different weights on them, like based on how, like a webinar attendance is probably a lot more involved than just simply downloading a ebook, right? So, or you can make the determination yourself. But using that granularity of features, you can really do a lot. And I kind of mentioned like why our model is so performant in terms of the lead scoring. It's precisely because of this engagement metric, right? Like those features rank very highly in terms of like feature importance in our models, and really helps us like do a great job of helping our sales reps be responsive to the right leads at the right time. So it's kind of arming them with like superpowers and enable them to effectively engage with our customers.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I understood. So we have profile data in Segment, and then we can export it to a data warehouse. I don't know, Snowflake or BigQuery or whatever we use. And then from there, as a data scientist, I just go there, pull the data from this data warehouse, and then I have my pandas data frame, and I train a model, right? And then I do whatever I usually do in my day-to-day work to make it work. What kind of use case do you see in practice here? You mentioned marketing. So I imagine this is like something like lead scoring, churn prediction, segmentation, things like that, right?
That's right. Yeah, so you can do many things with it, right? So with the data that we have, so one thing we did was to really supercharge our paid marketing efficiency. So I didn't quite cover this use case, but what we did with the power of Segment is that we were able to kind of grab two disparate data sources and associate them well. So on the one hand, we have a lot of paid marketing spend across different platforms. So like Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, right? So we pay a lot of money on each week to run campaigns there. And on the other hand, we have kind of leads data coming in from Salesforce, right? Like from our site, moving through to Marketo to Salesforce. Now, these two things are connected, but they live in different data systems. One is kind of through your Google Ads, Facebook ad platform, and then that's your cost data. And then your leads data is actually in a separate like system in your CRM. Now, using Segment, we're able to pull both that information into the data warehouse and make that association reliably. Now, of course, on top of that, we did some taxonomy grouping. So we use rigorous like UTM parameters tracking to then say, okay, we tag the ads in those platforms consistently with those UTM parameters, and we tag kind of leads as they're coming through and clicking through those links with the same UTM parameters. And using that, we're able to really join down, not just from a ad platform to lead granularity, is really to a ad group, and then like specific the ad level, right? So like very granular down to that basis. We're able to then help the marketers like optimize the kind of real-time marketing performance. They can quite literally see each day when I spend this amount, like how many leads do I actually bring in. Now, so
Did I
that's
understand correctly that you used Segment in order to promote Segment?
Sorry, come again?
Did I understand correctly that you wanted to promote Segment, and then for lead scoring, you actually use Segment?
That's right. No, so we actually do a lot of segment for segments, right? And the to bring the ML conversation to a full loop. So that so the workflow you mentioned, right? Okay, take from Snowflake, and you run your model on it. We actually have the information back in data warehouse, back in Snowflake, and that's where our reverse ETL tool can come in to then take the output of your model and send it anywhere. So for the lead score that I mentioned, we send it back to our CRM, Salesforce, so that stakeholders can see instantaneously, okay, what this lead is, like what kind of quality they are. And then two, let's mention, we send it back to the app platforms, right? So again, there are dedicated kind of ETL, reverse ETL integrations with like Google Ads, Facebook Ads. So those are kind of like pretty cookie cutter in terms of this is the information I want to send back to Google to tell them to target this kind of lookalike audience. And that is what really enabled us to really shorten that loop from weeks to hours.
Okay, I was trying to agree with you and say something, but then I realized I'm muted.
No,
This is an awesome use case. Do you have any materials online about this use case or something similar for those who want to try to reproduce this and maybe also do lead scoring or paid marketing efficiency campaign?
Yeah, let me look it up real quick. How segment uses segment, I believe.
Because I imagine this is a pretty common use case.
Yeah.
Right? This paid marketing efficiency project.
Okay, so we literally have an ebook
how
called
segment uses segment. That's
right.
awesome.
And we articulated a couple of use cases that we did here to really use our product to help our business.
I'm putting right now this to the description and to the live chat. And inside, what do you have? What do we have inside? Like, is it like a hands-on guide?
Yeah.
Now
I actually it's not. I don't think it's hands-on to the developer level, but it does
what
give
I really
you
want to get from you is like hands-on on developers level. So like, let's say I'm a developer and I want to walk away from this workshop with knowing how I can implement something like that. And I'm wondering what's the best resource for that? Where can I learn that?
Well, I think this is actually going to be a good start because we do, and let's just kind of go through this quickly. We do have pretty good, at least it lays out the plan, right? Or at least kind of like the strategy that we approach this. I think is like when it comes down to the actual technical implementation, we almost kind of need to go into the code base, but there's definitely enough here for us to get there. So let's see. Yeah, we drive this accurate. Yeah, so we talked about attribution and then lead scoring. There we go.
Okay, cool. So this is the resource if you want to.
It's fairly detailed and involved, right? Like, I mean, so we do go down into some detail as to how we kind of even lay out the structure. Yeah, but it's like we don't kind of go into the code base here, but like I think it's like fairly detailed in terms of okay, so what exactly we're doing here. So like the things I articulated, you know, we send that information back to Salesforce. You can kind of see in the lead record. This is kind of how like the broad strokes in terms of how we constructed that path. Yeah, and just like examples of how we enable other use cases here. So hopefully that helps. There's a lot of material basically that we
definitely. I see that this is a good start, and then from this document, I would go to the docs that you mentioned. You mentioned that you have a great documentation team, so they really take good care of creating documents. So I start with this, and then I go to the docs, and this is how I actually learn how to do a similar use case.
Awesome.
Who would you say the main target user? Is it data engineers? Is it data scientists? Is it marketers? All of the above?
Yeah. So Alexei, this is a really great question. And we found actually that for a healthy implementation of the product, you actually need kind of all three. Or I would say rather, I think the data engineer is very critical in getting the product instrumented well. And historically, we found that marketers do benefit the most from it because it kind of abstracts away that a lot of that complexity for them and enables them to kind of do their job. But I would say equally for a data audience, like I love segment as a product, right? Because it's like I also reap the benefits from like that clean data. The reason why maybe historically we haven't quite been as front and center as a audience is because we can DIY. right? Like, so before the product kind of expanded into certain features, I did actually lobby my data engineering team to come up with our own reverse ETL solution. So it's not like we weren't ETLing at all. We were just kind of using our own solution, right? Before segment Unifi became what it was today, we did identity resolution too, but we kind of did it on our own, like put in a lot of hard work to get there. So I would say the value proposition for a data audience is that, look, I know I can do it. We know we can do it. Like, is it what we want to spend our time doing? And I think Alexei expressed this, right? Like, it is a lot of work to put into ID resolution and maintain it just to help make sure you have 3 good features in your 50 feature model, right? Like, it's actually quite onerous. So if I can outsource that work somewhat, and it's not really outsourced, you still kind of need to be involved, but if I can have a tool that helps me do that easily, yeah, like sign me up. And that's kind of my experience with kind of segment Unifi. Now, then taking a step back to go back to your original question, like why I say you kind of do need both a kind of engineering and business element to interaction with the product is because if you're just an engineer and hooking things up on your own, you lose interest after a while because there's no business use case for it. So you do need like someone with a business use case to kind of tell you, hey, this is how I kind of want to activate the data. Now, conversely, if you only have marketers in the loop, they are typically so far removed from the stack that a lot of the wish list is like, hey, I want the audience to look like that. Beautiful, clean, nice. But they don't quite understand the requirements going beneath the hood that, okay, this is a CDP. We can, you still need to instrument it well. And you need to instrument it across new sources that you bring in. We help you do that very easily, but there still needs to be that base level of investment by an engineer to do that. But I would say like it easily collapses the work of like 10 engineers into one, right? So like with one data engineer, you can like basically, I think 10, 15 is not exaggerating just kind of how the product segment as a product really supercharges the ability of our data engineers.
Yeah, this is the coming back to this build versus buy discussion, right? So of course you can build, but like how much time are you willing to spend on supporting this, on maintaining this? And usually data scientists are not super excited about supporting something like that.
Yeah, no. So for me,
I just want to get clean data and I want to
exactly. I was very excited about the build, and then after that, the maintain part, I was like, oh gosh, not again, right? So this really does help a lot.
I'm wondering, so it seems to me that the main use cases for segment are marketing use cases. Are there some non-marketing use cases that were perhaps surprising for you that you saw that people use segment for?
Oh yeah, I mean, we actually, so marketing is one thing. I think taking that a step further, actually a lot of customer engagement, like so customer success use cases as well. I know maybe it's like an extension of like marketing, but these are actually your people that
people already use the product and you want
to already use the product. They are your customers. You do want to like have that engagement and
prediction, right?
Exactly. So like an LTV or even just like thinking about how to surface up information that will really help your customers stay loyal to you. So one thing I know our customer success team does, and I haven't stayed too closely to the space recently, so I may get some of the specifics wrong, but I do know that they have a monthly metrics campaign that they run, which is like take all the information that they have in the workspace about their user and actually present that in a clean, sanitized way to the end users and let them know like, hey, here are some optimizations you can do, or here's some suggestions. Like we note that you've hooked up your sources to this, but they don't seem quite, properly configured. Like, could you go take a look, right? Like things along those lines where you can really, because I think we touch upon a lot of that marketing use case, right? Once they're in our ecosystem, and in-app, we do a lot of in-app tracking as well. So within the app, you can actually literally in a as granular a basis that you want to set up your instrumentation, understand how your user kind of flows and interacts with your product. So you could really go pretty far and get pretty involved there, right? So you can come up with ideas of like, how well is your customer actually adopting your product? How well are they actually then engaging with it? And then is there any churn risk, right? So like kind of using this, you can then proactively then reach out to kind of mitigate or help the customer along in their journey.
And I see there is a comment from Ben. Some other use cases we've heard of. There are product teams who use it to understand how to implement their software delivery. What are the pain points
for
for
sure.
applications?
For sure. So when we hook it up to Mixpanel and tools like Amplitude, you can also kind of see very current. So yeah, the product I should have said product managers are also a big part of that, right? They can kind of use that data to then see, okay, what is the typical flow, kind of through the web journey and even like through app, and see how we can better target and engage them accordingly. Great call out, Alexei.
So are there any surprising use cases, in addition to this software delivery that you can think of? Unexpected ones.
There are. I'm just probably not as close to some of the use cases. I think someone on the customer success team will really know. So we have like, so let me tell you this. Like,
so Ben just answered. I can.
Oh, Ben answered. Okay, good.
Yeah. So he said we've also heard of operations team using Segment to feed customer data to the call center to improve how we take care of them when they call us for help.
Thanks, Ben.
And it's very annoying now for me to read it from my phone because now in YouTube there is this big heart that covers half of the text. Anyways, I think we are, like I don't see questions. And maybe I have one more question for you.
Sure.
I imagine that many people will watch this in the recording and they will want to ask you questions at some point. What's the best way to reach out to you? I know that you put your email there.
That's my actual work email. So nwang@twilio.com. Yes. So
Okay.
I'm available for outreach. So send me an email.
Say it again because I was speaking while you were saying it.
No worries. So it's Wang, NWANG @twilio.com.
Okay, so that's the best way to reach out to you to ask a follow-up question.
That's right. Or you can find me on LinkedIn as well. I think there was my LinkedIn profile was attached to the Data Talks
profile.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to mention anything else before we wrap up?
Just one last quick plug, right? So we talked through how it could be good for you to kind of use some resources. We come back to the fact that it's a developer community here, and the best way to interact with our product is to create a workspace. So go in, see for yourself the power of the product, click around, and we have excellent docs and that you can leverage. Or if you so choose to, you can also reach out to a salesperson subsequently, both in-app or even on our external websites, and they can kind of walk you through in greater detail there. So choose your own venture. There are multiple paths to learning more about the product here.
Mm-hmm. And then two things just to iterate that we shared: Segment University and the ebook on how Segment uses Segment. Yeah, these are two really good things. I included them in the description. Check them out. And I guess that's all for today. All right.
All right. Thanks, Alexei. I appreciate you having us on today.
And thanks, Ben, for dropping by too in the comment section and helping a bit. So yeah, have a great rest of your day, and see you soon.
Cheers. Take care.
Bye, everyone.